The final week of October, and we are excited for the games this weekend, but we've got to talk about the volleyball last weekend. What a weekend as we welcome you into Six Rotations, a weekly NCAA women's volleyball show alongside the legendary head coach, Mick Haley. I'm Daniel Gilman, sponsored as always by SNA Sports, better equipment for a better game. And Mick, was it the match of the century that we were building it up, that everyone was building it up to be the biggest match in ACC history? I thought our buddy Sam Gore had a fantastic broadcast with Claire Hoffman over there on ACC Network. It went the distance. It was the hype. And if you don't know what we're talking about, maybe you're watching the wrong show. Pittsburgh, Louisville, 5 sets. And just by the hair of their skins, Mick, Anna Stevenson powers the Cardinals through into a 5-set win as Louisville stays undefeated. We'll talk about that to start this show.
Unbelievably offensive display by both teams. I've never, well, I won't say never, but I haven't seen a match like this in a long time. 4 players for Louisville, all over 17 points scored. Such an even balance. I couldn't believe it. And for Pitt, 4 players over 12.5 with one at 23 points scored for that match. Just a slugfest. And that doesn't mean there was no defense. The defense was really, really good.
Yeah, first set, Pittsburgh hit 7-14, take it 25-19. They had 21 kills in the first set. Are you kidding me? It's off and running. Pittsburgh's 11-0 on the road, and you're thinking, okay, maybe Dan Fisher's got it figured out, and we're going to have 2 one-loss teams atop the ACC. Louisville bounces back nicely in the second set. Lund powers the Panthers through the end of the third set. Then we had a couple minor injuries, right? Both setters got a little banged up. Tori Dilfer powered through in a 4th set injury, took them to extra points. Louisville took them in extra points in the 4th set. And then Member Monet. What a week for Lacater Member Monet, who had an incredible 5th set against Notre Dame earlier in the weekend. I think had 5 kills in that 5th set against the Irish to avoid the upset, and then has a big 5th set for Pitt, but it wasn't enough. Louisville goes on a 4-0 run, Mick. They had a massive challenge, right? You remember that challenge? I think it was 11-9. Chaussee steps up big time, 13-all. 5 ties in that 5th set, and then it's bang, bang. Stevenson kill, Stevenson block. Pittsburgh moves to 11-1 on the road. And now Louisville, as we take a look here at our top 10, Louisville doesn't quite get the love to jump into 1, but they sit number 2, Mick, as they are hot on the heels, just 60 points behind Texas in the total points adjusted. So the coach was giving them a little bit more love.
Well, I think if the coaches looked a little closer at who Louisville has beaten, as opposed to who's Texas has beaten, you might be very easy to put Louisville number 1. And certainly we'd love to see them play each other. That's not going to happen, but Louisville is going to play Pitt again, and Texas is going to play Baylor in a couple of weeks. And so we're going to see about these undefeated seasons yet.
Yeah, I have written down here, I really wish, and this weekend was so fun in the Big Ten. We're going to get to that in just a second. You see Wisconsin sitting at number 3. If you didn't check, they had a perfect weekend. They were able to stave off any upset bids they got from Ohio State and Penn State. But I really wish we got that Wisconsin-Texas pre-conference match, or really any of those top teams right here in the top 5. Texas didn't quite schedule them, and it's not their fault, right? They scheduled Florida and Minnesota and Stanford, but those 3 teams haven't quite had the season that maybe Texas was hoping that they would have. But we'll get Baylor, Texas next weekend in Waco. Not much Big 12 talk this weekend. Baylor did lose a set against West Virginia and had to go extras in that 4th set. But Mick, I think it's time to talk about the Big Ten. They've got 8 teams in the top 35 of the RPI that came out on Monday. And sitting in that top 10, I think it's about time we give our due to the Nebraska Huskers, because they still sit undefeated in the conference and have the epic battle coming up this week, a midweek match in the UW Fieldhouse.
Yeah, Nebraska had a great match this weekend, and they have, after they had that 3-match loss streak that they had, they've really turned it around. One of the things you notice is Lauren Stivrins has come up. She was big this weekend with 16.5 points. Kubik with 15.5, Kraus with 14.5, and Caffey with 15.5. I mean, when you have balance like that, you got to think Nebraska's back. Purdue, on the other hand, was 0 for 2 this weekend, and they can't get any scoring other than Newton and Cleveland. So Dave Shondell has got to figure out some other people to bang the ball on the floor.
Yeah, a little bit of a look-ahead match on Wednesday for the Fighting Shondells out in West Lafayette. They dropped it in 5 at home to Michigan State and then came out surging in Devaney. I've been there with Purdue, and that is a menacing place where the Boilermakers have not won a set in a couple years in, but the first set goes to the Boilermakers. Grace Cleveland was looking great. Nebraska is so balanced, and we embrace all of the love that we get from our Nebraska fans. Mick, you should check them out on the YouTube page and everything on Twitter. They love us. They don't love us. You know, you have to be honest. They had such a tough pre-conference season, and when you hold the pinnacle of volleyball excellence, you've got to have them at a high regard. And when they struggle and lose matches that they lost, Utah and, you know, the like, and Omaha to 5 sets, you've got to, you know, be critical. I am very impressed with how John Cook is holding Lexi Sun accountable, moving on from her when she's not playing her best match. I think she had 4 kills, 4 errors. They quickly took her out, went to a balanced attack. 3 different players had between 13 and 15 kills for Nebraska, with none of them over 15 kills. So that's just pure balance. What are you seeing, and how far do you see this Nebraska undefeated run going in conference play?
Well, I think we did it absolutely correctly. I think that we waited until Nebraska started to play at the level that they know they can play before we moved them up in the poll. And they've moved up very nicely. They're getting high scoring now. Stivrins is a big part of that. If she can continue to do double point scoring in matches like she is now, they're going to be right up there. And I think 5 is a good spot for Nebraska. I like 5 or 6 for Nebraska now. I think they moved up. But next week, as you said, they have 2 critical matches with the big boys. And so we'll see how they fare there. And then we'll know about Nebraska.
And we know how tough that trip is, right? Going to Wisconsin, going to Minnesota. Most recently, the victims, Ohio State, they just, they were blocked out of the gym, right? By Wisconsin, 7-0 in the first set. Go ahead.
Yeah, that first 2 sets
crushed them. 11.
That was as good as Pittsburgh and Louisville. The first 2 sets. Yeah. But Ohio State lost steam, and Londot can't seem to have that scoring that she had early. I don't know if she's injured or what's going on, but they need her to have 3 to 5 kills per set every night.
Yeah, and you know what? They've got Janasia Moore, a phenomenal, like, 6th man of the year candidate, if you want to go basketball terms. She came in, she's fiery, has a great serve, but you just can't lead 14-8 and watch it fade away because of blocks. That's got to be hard for Buckeyes fans. 11-1 was the block total after 2 sets. Then Ohio State again led 14-8 in the 3rd set. They forced the 4th, but 19 blocks for Wisconsin, just impossible to overcome. And then Ohio State, just when I was ready to write off Minnesota, who had lost in a tough one against Penn State. Penn State was down big in the 2nd set. I had written down here, is Minnesota fraudulent this year? And nope, they come out and they steamroll the Buckeyes on Sunday. There was also Penn State, Wisconsin, which was a battle of middles. You had to enjoy that, right? Caitlin Horde against Dana Redke. They were, I don't know. I think that was maybe the most impressive showing from Penn State this season of a weekend, right? I mean, you go to Minnesota and Wisconsin and you almost take both.
They picked the wrong weekend because Redke put on her most famous weekend ever. 45.5 points scored over the 2 matches. I mean, unbelievable. And Orzel was really good too with 35 points.
She made one incredible diving play late in that match too.
Yes. If those 2 can continue to produce like that, Wisconsin's going to even be better than we thought they were going to be.
Yeah. So Penn State forced the 5th set. Only Wisconsin's 2nd 5-setter of the season. They lost their other one. That was the Maryland loss. And it's got me thinking, I don't know if people are giving Wisconsin the kind of love that they might deserve. In my opinion, right now where we sit, Mick, it almost feels to me like Texas Wisconsin are locked into the Final Four. I'm still waiting to see Louisville, Pittsburgh, obviously Nebraska are the other three teams that I don't want to commit to see. But in my mind, right, Texas and Wisconsin are the pinnacle. And of course, they battled in the championship last year.
I would actually throw this out not to be controversial, because I actually
it's okay to be controversial.
Well, I think Louisville might be number one, Wisconsin might be number two, and Texas might be number three. And the reason I say this is because in their leagues, the other teams are playing so fast, and they're playing so fast that their level of play is continuing to go up. Texas doesn't see that speed every night in the Big 12. So unless they can manufacture that in practice, how are they going to stay with those other two?
But I'll tell you what, Texas has the horses that can manufacture it in practice. I'm still a bit bullish on the Longhorns. While I'm upset about that, the rankings, who really cares about coaches poll? This Sunday, we'll figure it all out, because we'll talk about it a little bit more in our marquee matches, but Washington, UCLA, 7 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night on ESPNU, and they will reveal, the NCAA Volleyball Committee will give us their top 10 teams, not the AVCA poll, not the RPI rankings, but the committee's top 10 as it sits right now. Mick doesn't like 10, but I love that it's 10, because that way we know who 9 and 10 are, right? We know the top 8, and then we know who's right there on that bubble. Will it be BYU or maybe Washington sitting there? What kind of love will they give Kentucky? And then we've got a fantastic championship-based show just one day removed. We're going to record it next Monday. It'll be out for you guys next Tuesday, November 2nd. We've got guests. We've got potential giveaways. Make sure to get excited, because once November hits your calendar, it is championship talk nonstop. But we can keep going through the conferences here, Mick. There was another big one at the end of the Big Ten. Illinois sits alive in that at-large talk because they beat Michigan in a 4-setter where 3 of the sets went extra points. Michigan is nearing must-win territory this weekend against Ohio State. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want you to compare, right? Give me a comparison between the at-large teams at the bottom of the Pac-12, and I don't mean bottom, but the bottom of the top, and the at-large teams like Illinois and Michigan, as we get into a little bit of Pac-12 talk here. Do you think that they're comparable?
Well, a little bit, I do, because USC had a chance to jump into this conversation, and they lost a 5-setter this weekend that if they could have won, that would have put them in they are in the same situation as Michigan. They don't have as many, they may be one less good win than Michigan has. So when you look at Illinois and Michigan, you're looking at the Pac-12, you're looking at SC being 7 or 8 here, but everybody else is playing well, and they keep beating up on each other. I thought Stanford would make their move this weekend, and Washington said, no way, and they sealed that down right away. Washington State's making another push. They seem to go in waves, like hot and cold, but their 2 foreign players score points with everybody else in the country or better, and so they've got to be looked at. I think Stanford, I looked at the 3 big hitters for Stanford. All 3 of them were right about 19 points per set. Baird, Sammy, your favorite. Her last name. No, Kendall Kipp.
Oh, Francis, also, Francis, Baird, and Kipp.
Sammy Francis, yes, the new ones. I have to get up on her, but boy, they really produced this weekend, and still it wasn't enough. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes with the Big Ten. I don't think that the committee will have that be lopsided, but boy, if you're Michigan or SC or even Colorado, who seems to be dying real quick here. Utah was in a slump. They're starting to come back. I look at the matchups and wow, I don't know how this is going to work.
Yeah, let's take a look. So it's Washington, the only Pac-12 team in the top 10. They swept Cal and Stanford. And then as we reveal the rest of the top 25, you've got to go a little bit down that road to find Pac-12 teams, 15, 16, 17, 19. You've got Stanford, UCLA, Oregon, Utah, then Washington State staying in there. No team has fallen out of this top 25 in the last 2 weeks, which who knows what it'll show. Maybe the coaches are not quite, holding themselves accountable in the bottom half of the rankings. Should Illinois jump in there? They're sitting as the number 26th team. Miami down in Coral Gables, the number 27th team. And then you've got teams like Marquette and Arizona State. Arizona State had the big weekend and the big stretch so far. They've got those 3 straight wins, UCLA in 5, Utah and Colorado both in 4 this past weekend. The Colorado losses are crushing, right? Arizona ends Arizona State. Pretty much take them out of the conversation for the time being, you think?
I think that's for sure. And you mentioned Marquette, they're back against Creighton for the second time this next week. So we need to watch that one, because if they split, then what does that do to Creighton?
You know what? Where we are now, I think they're both pretty much guarantees to make the tournament, you think? I don't want to use that word. You put a little italics around it, but as long as they don't choke down the stretch, they're both in, and neither are hosting in my mind at the moment.
Well, I think Creighton has to win this. They have to go up on Marquette
to host, you mean, right? To be a top 16?
Yeah. Otherwise, I think they're going to be out there and just hoping to figure out what they're going to do. So
yeah, we're going to see on Sunday. Sunday is going to be the big night that we find all of that out. But also UCLA, they're sitting at 16. They went up 1 spot. They swept Oregon. Is that not a big enough win? I don't know. Like, Oregon drops from 16 to 17. UCLA goes from 17 to 16. I know they lost to Arizona State last weekend, but I still feel like UCLA is not quite getting the love that we are giving them. Stanford beat Washington State in 5, though. That's clinging on. Is Stanford the 15th best team in the nation? I don't know. That whole jumble is just going to – how nice would it be, Mick, if we could have a Pac-12 conference tournament? Wouldn't that be so great to just figure it all out? I know Big Ten has wanted it for a while, but neither of them are going to do it. It would just be so fun to find out in an environment neutrally who the best teams are.
Well, Pac-12 would have to add 4 more schools in the Big Ten too, so you could have something like that. But that's not going to happen.
Just have the top 8 or something like that. The top 6 make it.
Until you get to 16 teams, and to make it where they're not doing home and away against each team, you're not going to see that. But yeah, that would almost be one of those situations where one team's going to win 3, get into the tournament, and have to play a team for the 4th time, like Michigan, Indiana basketball way back in the day when Michigan, I think, lost to Indiana 4 times in the season, or had a chance to win the 4th time, and everybody said, "Oh no, we don't want to see these guys again." So those conference tournaments are good for getting into the tournament, but not so good for excitement. So
that match is Friday night, 7:00 Central Time in Milwaukee. So we'll have an eye on that one. We'll have our marquee matches coming for you soon. But we've got to talk a little bit of ACC and SEC. Syracuse took the first set against Georgia Tech, and it had everyone thinking, is this a letdown match for our Brazilians? But no, Georgia Tech powered through in 4. Serena Gray was really good against Notre Dame. I wanted to give a little bit of love to her. 19-27 for Serena Gray in that 5-setter against Notre Dame. I think
very good job by Gray in that particular situation. That's good. But you were talking about the conference and who's going to really get in there. They have some crucial battles, and Georgia Tech's not out of this yet. Georgia Tech may, in fact, be the one team that keeps getting a little bit better and a little bit better. So we need to keep our eye on them.
They're certainly not out of it.
Yeah. I mean, they're not out of it for the championship yet. So you have to watch them very closely. They may not have the manpower, but see how the matchups go.
They're 8-2 with Pittsburgh, but Georgia Tech is the 7th RPI team in the country. In fact, the ACC is all over the RPI. Pittsburgh is number 1, Louisville number 4, Georgia Tech 7, Miami at 15. It's going to be hard to keep them out of the hosting conversation if they continue to win, right? If Miami picks up that one marquee win against one of these top ACC teams, and they've got the chances, obviously, right? In the ACC, you can do stuff down the stretch, but it's just going to be one of those situations. In fact, as I look now, I don't think Miami has another match against Pittsburgh or Louisville, but they play at Georgia Tech, so that could be their one chance. But yeah, ACC-wise, a shout-out to the FSU head coach, Chris Poole, who became the fastest coach ever to reach 200 ACC wins with the sweep at Va Tech. And then some SEC talk. This is a controversial segment for me because I felt like the SEC had a tough weekend, right? I thought, Arkansas forcing Kentucky to 5 twice is an interesting look for the Wildcats at home. Mississippi State was the winner of the weekend in the SEC, obviously beating Texas A&M, but LSU forces Tennessee to 5, sweeps Tennessee. Does LSU have a chance, Mick, if they go on a run?
Boy, I don't think they can get back in there, but they're starting to play at the level that I thought when we talked early in the season or preseason even. I thought LSU was going to play like this the whole year. Right now, Coach Fran Flores got them playing, got DeBerg playing, got the block going. I mean, they're block city out there. You have to be careful when you're attacking with those guys. They get over the net. They might have an outside chance, but they have to beat some people. They can't just split. They have to go in and be terminal and take people out. Now, that's the only way they get in there. And then what about Florida? What is going on with Florida? They have talent oozing, same starting lineup as that team that scared the living daylights out of everybody last spring.
Yeah, forced Wisconsin to 5.
Yeah, they're just kind of cruising right now because of the lack of competition, but we need to get them back in the competition and see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, they swept Texas A&M, notable. They're going to host Tennessee November 4th, and then a couple at Arkansas. And Arkansas actually is up there in RPI. They're 33rd, Mississippi State 32nd. I want to go through a couple of these SEC RPIs for you. LSU is toast, by the way, to answer my own question. They're 5-7 in their conference. They're 3-11 against top 50 teams, and they are 68th in RPI behind Ole Miss, South Carolina, A&M, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. So I can't see a world where LSU crawls their way back in, but Florida at 30th or 29th in the RPI. It all comes down, Mick, and it's almost like they get their own SEC tournament because they finish their season at Kentucky. And so what better way to fire up Mary Wise's squad than to say it kind of doesn't matter until those matches in Lexington, right?
Well, they don't have a choice. I mean, they just can't get upset by these teams that they're better than, but they want to win when they get to Lexington. I mean, they almost have to win. And the same with LSU. Take LSU. If they win out, then they do have a chance. They could get to 44, 45 in the RPI. They could get into the tournament. And if they're hot, I don't think you want to play those kinds of teams in the first or second round. So you're right on all counts. I want to say a little bit about Arkansas. Their coach, I played against their coach when he was at Brigham Young, when he came to Arizona State. His teams are always the best at the end of the season, and they scare the living daylights out of you. They get left side strong. They're little hitters, swing and swing and swing. And I think Craig is really happy there at Kentucky that he got out of there with 2 wins, because when Arkansas gets in a groove like this, they'll play everybody really close all the time.
I do want to interrupt you. LSU does not have any more matches against the top 40 team. So that's just going to be tough for them to climb up that
they have to ladder. Hope that their conference teams dominate everybody. Yeah. Or beat each other up to the point that they can move up. But I think it's a stretch. I agree with you. I think it's a stretch that they get in. They lost that opportunity in October. It was too bad. But I always think you can win until you can't. So I think they try to win out and see what happens.
All right. And then let's talk a little bit about some of these non-Power 5 conferences. Maybe the upset of the weekend was Gonzaga in 5 against LMU, which in my mind maybe pushes the WCC back to a 3-bid conference. Yep. All of the hype around LMU, that is a devastating loss. BYU took care of San Diego behind Kenzie Korber and her strong effort. And then a big one this weekend with Pepperdine and LMU. I think that'll tell a little bit more. We've got WCC and a little bit of Big West talk as UC Santa Barbara with maybe their biggest win in a decade. I know they almost took off Texas in the tournament in 2019. They beat Texas State, but they sweep the undefeated Hawaii Rainbow Wahine. Abriel Bras has 10 kills without an error. Rowan Ennis is a senior middle who had 11 kills with just 1 error. They outblocked Hawaii 11-3. And now the Big West, which looks like a 1-bid conference this season, unless the love is given to Hawaii, should Santa Barbara win it. is up for grabs as both of them sit 8-1. So those are a couple, lower level conversations for us to keep our eye on, right? I mean, it's not going to be a 3-bid conference in the Big West, but Hawaii or Santa Barbara could make some noise in the tournament.
Yeah, and if LMU beats Pepperdine in the WCC, that puts Pepperdine in jeopardy. No matter where the coaches have been ranking them, that puts them down there where they're tied with LMU. It could be just BYU and USD again.
We'll see. Just the fact that the coaches are continuously voting for Pepperdine and keeping them in the top 25 gives me a little bit more assurance that they're solid. But you're right. If they don't win all of the matches they need to win, and that'll lead us right into our marquee matches. They've got LMU on Friday, but the fun starts Wednesday. Let's jump into these marquee matches. Kentucky at Tennessee. That is one of those SEC matches that you've got to keep an eye on. It's a big weekend for ESPNU. They've got 3 ranked volleyball matchups, ranked versus ranked. Kentucky at Tennessee, 6 o'clock on Wednesday, followed by a BTN brawl. Nebraska at Wisconsin. Who do you tip your cap towards with Nebraska at Wisconsin?
Well, I give Wisconsin the edge. Nebraska fans don't get mad, but that's playing on the road in front of that crowd at Wisconsin. You've got to give them the edge right now until you can take it away from them, because you get your chance with Wisconsin when they come to you. But wow, this will be a big one for Nebraska. We need to see if they can do it at Wisconsin.
Yeah, Nebraska's RPI sits at 12. I'm a little bit more inclined to tip my meter towards Nebraska. It feels like Wisconsin had such a heavy weekend, right? They put so much emotion, and you can see it on TV. It's a quick turnaround. Yes, they get to stay on their home because it feels like Wisconsin never goes on the road.
Little steps.
You got to imagine that Nebraska is going to have a pretty solid contingent of their shade of red in the Fieldhouse on Wednesday night. Yeah, we'll see. It's definitely going to go 5, right? And then Friday is a Pac-12 delight. Utah at Oregon, Washington State at UCLA. Do you feel like the home teams are just going to make those not too competitive?
No, only if, and I think Washington State plays at UCLA. If UCLA was playing at Washington State, I would pick Washington State, because you go to the Palouse. That is the hardest place to win that I've been to in the whole country. But going to UCLA, big challenge for Washington State. If they can win at UCLA, they'll be for real.
And then WCC Network has the LMU match. Just one of those that you may not need to watch the whole thing, but you keep an eye on the score. A desperate Michigan needing a win, hosting a reeling Ohio State team. That's one to keep an eye on. You mentioned that whenever those two teams play in any sport, anything's up for grabs. And then
Michigan has to win. So
Michigan needs to win. Ohio State pretty much needs to win to stay in that conversation of being a top 10 team. Nebraska at Minnesota, tired Nebraska team, a hungry Minnesota team. We'll see what happens there. Wisconsin at Purdue. Could Wisconsin, I mean, this is a tough turnaround, right? You've got to host Nebraska and then go to Indiana. That's a tough one. That's on ESPNU on Sunday. Are any Sunday fireworks here with Wisconsin or Washington maybe pulling off, a little bit of jet lag?
Boy, I don't know. Sundays are hard matches because, the first match in the weekend right now, late in the season, you get ready for that. In some cases, though, you're better in the second match because you've played, you got the day to travel or wherever, you get in there and you're ready to go. You've just had one match, you carry that over, you're ready to play hard. So it's a hard one to read. I don't know the answer to that. I think Nebraska loses the first one, wins the second one. That's the way I feel about Nebraska right now. I think they'll get better. I think Minnesota, that's too much power for Minnesota right now. So,
And I think the opposite. I think Wisconsin loses the first. Wisconsin rolls over Purdue. The Boilermakers always struggle with Kelly Sheff when he comes to town. And I also think UCLA will put up a little bit of a fight, and we'll have that top 10 reveal on ESPNU Sunday night. Tune in next week for our championship-centric episode. He's Mick. I'm Daniel. Thank you so much for watching Six Rotations.